On a cold October morning in 1849, a man was found delirious, half-conscious, dressed in another man's clothes, lying in the gutter outside a Baltimore tavern. He was incoherent, whispering names no one could understand, begging for help. Days later, that man would be dead. His name was Edgar Allan Poe, America's master of mystery, the poet of ravens, haunted mansions, and restless souls. But Poe's death remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. Was he murdered, poisoned, driven mad by drink, drugs, or despair? Or was he the victim of a sinister political scheme? For nearly 2 centuries, historians, doctors, and detectives have tried to uncover the truth. But like his own stories, the ending is veiled in shadows. Tonight, we step into those shadows. We retrace Poe's final days. We explore the theories, and we try to solve, if only in whispers, the riddle of Edgar Allan Poe's mysterious death. Edgar Allan Poe was born on January 19, 1809, in Boston, Massachusetts. From the beginning, his life was touched by tragedy. His father abandoned the family when Edgar was just a year old. A year later, his mother, an actress, died of tuberculosis. Orphaned before the age of 3, Edgar was taken in by the wealthy Allan family of Richmond, Virginia. They gave him education, refinement, but never belonging. The young Poe grew into a man of brilliance and torment. He attended the University of Virginia, but gambling debts forced him to leave. He joined the military, then West Point, but he clashed with authority and left in disgrace. All his life, Poe was torn between genius and ruin, love and loss. By the 1830s and 40s, Poe had risen as one of America's most original writers. He crafted chilling tales like The Fall of the House of Usher, The Telltale Heart, and The Black Cat. He invented the detective story with the murders in the Rue Morgue. And his poem, The Raven, published in 1845, made him a household name. But fame did not bring fortune. Poe lived in poverty, moving from city to city, struggling to support his young wife, Virginia Clem, who was also his cousin. When Virginia died of tuberculosis in 1847, Poe spiraled into despair. By 1849, he was 40 years old, fragile in health, prone to depression, and drinking heavily. Yet he was also on the edge of a new life, engaged to his childhood sweetheart, Sarah Elmira Royster, with promises of stability and happiness ahead. And then, fate intervened. In late September 1849, Edgar Allan Poe left Richmond, Virginia, on a journey north to Philadelphia, where he was to edit a collection of poetry. He never made it. For days, Poe vanished from the record. No one knows where he went, who he met, or what befell him. Then, on October 3rd, 1849, a print Walker wrote, "There is a gentleman rather the worse for wear at Ryan's Tavern who appears in great distress and who says he is acquainted with you. He goes under the name of Edgar A. Poe." Poe was barely conscious. He was wearing tattered clothes, not his own, a cheap, ill-fitting suit and a straw hat. His own clothing, elegant and dark, was missing. He was taken to Washington College Hospital, where for 4 days he drifted in and out of delirium. Witnesses described him as muttering incoherently, calling out the name Reynolds again and again. On October 7th, 1849, Edgar Allan Poe died. His final words, according to his attending physician, were, "Lord, help my poor soul." He was buried the next day in Baltimore, in an unmarked grave. The questions began immediately. How did one of America's greatest writers end up dying in rags, delirious, in the streets of Baltimore? Poe's death was never investigated. His medical records vanished. His attending physician gave contradictory statements, and so speculation filled the void. Over the years, dozens of theories have emerged. Each one adds a layer to the mystery. Theory 1: alcohol. Poe was known to struggle with alcohol. Friends reported that even small amounts made him dangerously ill. Some speculated he had a rare condition that magnified alcohol's effects. One theory claims that Poe simply drank himself to death, succumbing to delirium tremens, hallucinations and seizures caused by alcohol withdrawal. But there's a problem. Witnesses at the tavern said Poe wasn't drunk. In fact, some doctors later argued his symptoms did not match alcohol poisoning at all. Theory 2: rabies. In 1996, a medical team reviewed Poe's case. They concluded that his symptoms, fever, hallucinations, difficulty swallowing, agitation, matched rabies. Poe had no known animal bite, but in the 19th century, rabies could be contracted and go unnoticed. Rabies is fatal. Once symptoms appear, there is no cure. Could Poe have been its victim? Theory 3: cooping. This is perhaps the most sinister theory. In 19th century Baltimore, gangs practiced cooping, kidnapping victims, forcing them to drink, disguising them in multiple outfits, and marching them to polling stations to vote repeatedly in elections. Where was Poe found? At a polling station on election day, and he was wearing someone else's clothes. Had America's greatest poet been beaten, drugged, and used as a pawn in election fraud? The theory fits too well to ignore. Theory 4: murder. Some historians suggest Poe was the victim of foul play. He had enemies. He was engaged to Sarah Elmira Royster, whose wealthy family opposed the marriage. Could they have intervened? Others point to Poe's mysterious cries of Reynolds. Was he naming his attacker? Or was he deliriously recalling Jeremiah Reynolds, an explorer he admired? The name remains a riddle. Theory 5: heart disease, epilepsy, or other illnesses. Some argue Poe suffered from chronic illness, epilepsy, diabetes, even a brain tumor. Without medical records, the truth remains hidden. In the end, Edgar Allan Poe's death is as haunting as his stories. He left behind a body of work that probes the darkest corners of the human mind: obsession, madness, guilt, the supernatural, and he himself became a character in his final unsolved tale. His grave was later marked with a monument. Admirers from around the world travel to Baltimore to pay their respects. Each January on his birthday, a mysterious figure known as the Poe Toaster once left roses and cognac on his grave, another layer of mystery for a man defined by it. Today, nearly 2 centuries later, Poe's influence echoes in every detective story, every horror film, every whispered ghost tale. And yet the riddle of his death endures. Was he a victim of drink, disease, violence, or something darker, a shadowy conspiracy that silenced the master of the macabre? We may never know, but perhaps that is fitting. For Edgar Allan Poe, life itself was a Gothic tale, and his death the final unsolved The boundaries which divide life from death are at best shadowy and vague. Who shall say where the one ends and the other begins? Edgar Allan Poe.